Welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Lead the Future. Change the conversation, an unedited, honest conversation to create the future. I'm Arjan Visser, futurist and your host, and join me as I chat with my friend Pete McKnight about authentic leadership transformation. Pete, a former performance director and strength and conditioning coach, is a consultant to executive leadership in elite sport and human performance. His drive is to see integrity restored in empowering and valuing people. Pete, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on here. It's a real privilege to speak to you. And I know we've tried to make this happen for 1 or 2 years, or I don't know how long, but really good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, let's find out where we can have a conversation that really lifts our perspective, elevates what we share about when we talk about authentic leadership. And one of the things that for me stood out through processing this through the years is that authentic leadership starts with with who am I becoming as a person, as a leader, in what any type of role, but also who are the people that I surround myself with to go faster and further on the mission I have as a person, a leader, but also who am I called to make a difference to, and all are of course heavy topics, subjects, but so important to um, actually to be a bit to be the maker of the difference. I'm stuttering a bit, but we are called to make a difference to certain people, and to other people probably someone else is called to make a difference. But the more clarity we gain around that, the more effect we could have, make the world a better place.
Yeah.
But it starts with that authentic leadership transformation, inside out. So what comes to mind when I say authentic leadership transformation in your world?
I mean, so like you said at the beginning, I work in elite sports. So my background was as a coach, and I was coaching athletes across multiple Olympic games, both summer and winter. I was then working as a head of department and then a performance director. So moving my way up from coaching to actually overseeing the organization, still all in either professional sports or Olympic sports. And I really developed a growing interest in leadership. I already did at the start of my career have an interest in leadership, right from being a child and being chosen to be the captain of my under 11s football team. From that age onwards, I kind of had this interest in leadership. And so as the opportunities came, I took them. But being in the world of sports, I noticed the same probably in other spheres, but I just noticed that, there's some great leaders and there's a lot of places and situations and organizations that don't have good leaders. And I think one of the things I noticed is that people aren't even asking that question that you said at the beginning, who am I becoming? That it's not about that to a lot of people. It's what am I achieving? Are we winning enough? And what is the outcome? What is the result? And now these things are super important in sports. Sports is all about goals, medals, achievements, winning, standing on the top of the podium. But underlying that, there needs to be a real understanding of who you are and who you're becoming. And so for me, those are important questions. So being able to help leaders in sport understand those questions, ask those questions, and then begin to answer those questions really then helps them with the outcome side, because then the winning of medals and that kind of thing becomes easier because you're working in a more authentic way with people in a much more harmonious situation, if you like. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's kind of the approach that I'm taking and where I'm coming from at the moment.
Yeah. Well, what I always think is that in sports, and in other industries where winning is always in a way at the expense of others losing, You could say like it's as similar as in the military. You know, if if there's a war setting, one wins, one loses. You know, sometimes it's the tie, but most of the times that's not. And in leadership, especially where in just call it just the normal society, if that exists, it is about winning, but the other people to win as well. So we call it a double win, a triple win. You know, you want your client to win so that you win, but their clients should win as well. And that seems to be, I think, a contrast between the performing athlete and normal society. But the leadership roles in lead sports, they probably are with one foot in both worlds, because it's the athlete winning, but you've worked also in for sports with huge teams, like teams of, well, hundreds, maybe up to 1,000 people for a team, and it's not just the athlete that wins. No, the whole team should win, but there are business interests as well. So the business should win, and there are partners in the business that should win. Um, so that is always that contrast. Like with what we see on television, we see the athlete win the World Cup.
Yeah. Well, I think you've described it well there, because I think the problem lies in distinguishing between the sport and then running the sports organization. So like I'm passionate about sports. I've chosen to work in sports because I love sports. And when I'm working in sports, I just want to win, and I want to destroy the opponent and win, because I'm super competitive, and that's what sports is about. However, like you alluded to, you can't carry that same attitude and way of working into your organization and how you treat people within your organization. It's just not the same, because running an organization isn't about winning every day and absolutely destroying the opponent. If you treat people like that, you're not going to get very far in life. But I think one of the things is that a lot of the people who work in sports are ex-athletes, so super competitive, and they have that winning attitude. That's all good, but like we're saying, you have to then learn how to work with other people. And of course, in sports, there is the element of being a team member and a teammate, and you're working together as a team, of course, but it's just this kind of winning and losing mentality that's different in business. And there's plenty of people who run their organizations like a sports team. And, I just don't think it's the best way often. There's lots of learnings we can take from sports, but often the way you treat people, you treat your colleagues, the way you invest into people, the way you empower people, and the value you hold for people has to be different in an organization. So that's kind of the difference I see there.
Yeah. Well, like you say, with the team, and we all know that the management slogan of like "there's no I in team." That for me is a bit the definition of an unhealthy team in society. I prefer more the definition that, and I don't know even the source, it's definitely not me, but who says team stands for together everyone achieves more.
Yeah.
And so that means that everyone wins by being part of the team, and it's not about the team winning, that the team will win because it's the sum of the parts, but it's that every person is empowered and is valued, can grow and learn and unfold in the person they are called to become or desire to become, whatever stance of life you have. But I think that is that's not in just sports a challenge. I think that's the general challenge when you lead a team, that the individual needs to be seen and heard, as does the group are responsible for a certain result.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's unhelpful to use language from sports within an organization. You know, this whole thing of winning isn't always the right language and terminology, you know, and I like to use other language around, you know, cultivating, nurturing people, empowering people, supporting people, challenging people, and really helping people to thrive. So, you know, for me, a lot of the things that I like to encourage in leadership is around valuing people and then getting alongside them and really helping them to thrive and be, you know, reach their potential. Because, you know, there's people who naturally are driven and drive towards reaching their potential, and there's other people that need help and need support and need guidance and need a holding hand. And it can be because of difficulties in the past, it can be just because of different personality types, it can be because of all sorts of reasons. But, you know, I feel a real responsibility in leadership to help people thrive and to bring people on a journey where they're excited about the direction. They want to be there. They're not just being there because they're paid. They're there because they want to. They believe in the vision. They love their team. They're committed to the work, and we have a really good time and fun doing it. You know, and that's the other element that for me is really important, and it's this element of fun. You know, because often in sports organizations, they're so outcome driven, and they have to be, and they're process driven, and they're full of challenge, all good stuff. But where's the fun, you know? And I'm like, if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, then you're probably not doing the right thing. Of course, not every day is fun, and some days are tough and difficult. But, you know, I just think that we're missing that element sometimes of enjoyment and fulfillment and fun. And so for me, that's super important.
Yeah, I resonate with that. You know, it's not that bottom line of just the progress, the performance, achieving just the goals. You know, it's the whole ecosystem around it, which should be more about just the bottom line topics. It should be about top line growth. You know, like when people have fun, find fulfillment, then being committed to the vision is a tool for them to actually to contribute their best self and develop more.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that I know when you talk about the corporate ladder, then everything we just said now, you know, is not really part of it. It's the same in sports, you know, because in sports, you know, number two, well, you're the first of the losers. So how is that in a sport? Is that also what we just shared, something new, something desired, or just wishful thinking? Or is it already really a practice that we don't see on television? We only see the medals. Well, how do you experience that?
Experience what? Sorry,
if this is becoming a general practice to look at the well-being of the people.
Oh, the well-being side, yeah. I mean, it's definitely growing. I think until recently, it's often been kind of win at all costs, and you know, as long as we hit our medal targets and our funding targets, then that's okay. It doesn't matter what the cost is of that. But we've seen in a number of different sports organizations in the UK, where I'm currently working, and in other countries that I've worked, that actually that can really ruin the legacy of the organization if you know, you win the medals, but actually the fallout is terrible, and you know, people's lives are falling apart, and the reputation of the organization is damaged, and so on. So I do like to think about legacy, because I think if you've left a legacy, it means that your reputation is intact. I'm not just talking about me as an individual, I'm talking about the organization. So reputation is intact. There is systems and processes in place that this organization can carry on and can continue to be successful. There's evidence of success in the past. So we've won medals, we've been successful. And there's a body of work that has been done that has made an impact, whether that's kind of research into sports or new ways of doing things, innovations, technologies that's really made an impact. So for me, legacy is really important. But to come back to your point around the well-being side, yes, I mean, this hasn't been that valued in the past, but I think there's a trend generally in the world and in work that people's well-being is important, and that is coming into sports now. And I think it's becoming more and more important to really understand and value people's well-being, and that we need to look after our people. And I think there's a balance here, because what we want to do is we want to really value people and look after them, but at the same time, we still need to challenge people. We need to put them in challenging situations, and you can't give everybody everything they want, because as a manager or a leader, because that's not real life and things don't work like that. But they're two different things. Looking after somebody's well-being doesn't mean just letting them run the show and ask for whatever they want and they get it and that will keep them happy. It's not that at all. It's building them into really sound, robust people who understand themselves, understand other people, aren't self-centered, but others-centered, have good values, are honest, are trustworthy, and so on. So I think this the well-being piece is definitely becoming more important, and I think it's absolutely vital for longevity and sustainability within organizations. If you just burn people out and treat them badly, they're going to leave, and that the organization's just going to have high churn and turnover. Whereas really looking after people allows you to build something and build something together. So we're definitely seeing more of that in sports.
And then you say the well-being is that you hear more often that athletes say that it's always wrapped around they had mental issues, So, but when I think well-being, it's not the opposite of not having mental issues. I would say, no, it's much more. Like, it's definitely part of it. Your mental well-being is part of your well-being. But as a human-centered futurist, we always look at, but it's not only what you need to comply to, it's also what you need what are your deep desires. And in coaching, it arises quite often that people get more clarity about what they don't want, but they still have no language to express what they want. And I do believe personally that the well-being is really accelerated when you find words to express what you truly want. From the inside out, not from a checklist, but from the inside out, who you are created to be, who you are becoming, your vision, your future perspective, all those kind of things. If you can put that to words, you create some kind of tension with the now, because you are hungry for something that's not part of the now. But that's what we call intrinsic motivation, if we make it really positive sounding. But it feels like dissatisfaction in the moment.
Yeah, I think you're right. Just removing stress and problems isn't the opposite of, won't lead necessarily to well-being. It can be helpful, but I think it comes down to two things that you were talking about there. One is your identity, and these are buzzwords that have thrown around, but if you unpack them, they make a lot of sense. So one is your identity, like who are you? Do you understand who you really are? And then the other one is your purpose. Like, what is your purpose in this world? What is your mission? What are you trying to achieve? Where do you want to go? So your identity is, I guess, who you are and who you're becoming, and your purpose is, what are you wanting to achieve? What direction are you going? And And I think those two things are really key. And a lot of people don't take the time to sit down and think about them, contemplate them, and work them out. You're just caught on this treadmill of life that you're just going from one thing to the next, just trying to survive and not live like a purpose-driven life. And your identity basically then gets formed by whoever's around you, and whoever you spend the most time with will shape and mold your identity. Now, some of that's not bad, and that's inevitable. Like whoever, even if I'm quite clear in my identity and who I am, I will still get shaped and molded by the people around me. But I deliberately choose to spend time with people who are going to shape and mold me in the way that I want to be and in the way that I should be, not the other way around. But so it's that balance. But a lot of people haven't really got those concrete values and foundations in place, and so they're just changing depending on who they're with. Their identity isn't really founded on a strong foundation, and can really can move and change quite a lot. So I think really getting a concrete foundation of your identity, and then an understanding of your purpose or mission and direction can be really helpful.
If you look to your personal life, how does that intersect with that legacy? To say differently, some people say, what is the legacy you leave behind? And then before you get the cliche, like, what do you want that people read on your gravestone?
Yeah.
I always say, I want nothing on my gravestone. I would love to see who I am, what I've modeled, continue to live in my kids, my people, but I want to see it with my own eyes, so skip the gravestone. But you talk also about purpose, which purpose is also like, that's a bit like what's surround you right now, and that's expanding while your identity is growing. So how do you see those two things intersect or compete?
I think with legacy, a little bit like I said earlier, like for me, legacy is not really about me and the mark I'm leaving so people remember me. It's more like the work that the impact that I make is ongoing. So A, I've made an impact, and B, there's some kind of longevity to that. So I've left behind something that will have an ongoing impact in this world. So it then becomes a lot less about me, because in a generation or two's time, nobody will remember my name, but hopefully I've done something that will have that ongoing impact and legacy in the world. So that's kind of one thing I see. And if they remember my name, great, but it doesn't really matter, because I'm not here to have the ego boost from that. I'll be long gone. So that's why it really doesn't matter. So it's much more about the lasting impact. But I think this is where the intersection is with purpose, is that unless you really have a clear purpose, you don't know what it is you're building, or really where to focus your attentions, or you're really understanding your calling, if you like use that term earlier, your calling. And I'm not saying that everybody's legacy has got to be leaving an organization behind that's transforming the world, or it can be small things, but it can be leaving values in people that they won't forget. For example, today is the anniversary of my wife's mum's death. So she died. My wife's mum died a year ago today, and for me, what part of her legacy is that one thing I learned from her was that she treated everybody equally. And I've seen her treat people that have not necessarily been that nice to her family with so much dignity, honor, and respect. And, and that is a legacy. So did she leave behind a charity that transformed the local society? No. Did she leave around these incredible values and impact lots of people's lives? Absolutely. So legacy can be lots of different things. And, but I think it is linked to your purpose, like you said. So it's just taking time to think about these things and align them is helpful, and people should take that time, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and while you were talking, I was also thinking, like, what if legacy is more than what we leave behind when we are gone? What if legacy is already that what starts to run without us? Like, we have that saying, when your money makes money, when your thing works for you, let's not just focus on just money, but if what you have built starts to run on its own, then it's a blessing for you, but it's also a blessing for others. And in a way, by not letting that depend on when we are gone, but have that right now, it starts to release us to when the things start working for themselves, we can put our attention more in those things that are really important from a human perspective. And that is the human aspect, the relationships we have with people, their relationships with themselves, the well-being, all those kind of things. When we are fully occupied by being an element of the process, then there is no room. Mentally, there is no room. Physically, there is no time. So what if, when purpose and legacy meets each other, that it also has this opportunity to release us from being a part of the machine and have time, energy, focus, ideas to be human again and human with each other.
Yeah, I like that. I really like the way you've described that and framed it. And if I'm honest, it's something that I probably need to think about more. And it's a challenge because it's so true, and for me, it's linked with trying to live more in the present, because I'm quite purpose driven. I'm quite visionary, and often thinking a lot about the future and what I'm building. The challenge is also to live in the present and enjoy the present and actually see the fruits of the present. A little bit like you were talking about, things are kind of working by themselves because of what you've kind of put in place. So yeah, for me, it's a challenge, and it's a really good point. So yeah, I like your way of framing that. It's good.
Well, then let's leave it here before we kill the the outcome, and I take that with me as a challenge. Focus more on that. What I'm building is definitely not my ego boost, but it has the purpose of it is that it releases me and it starts running for itself. And we are surrounded with so much technology options. But if we have the clarity about who we are and what we are called to do, maybe we can isolate that and let that run by all those magnificent technology solutions.
Yeah.
And become more human to each other, to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to the people we lead in our organizations.
Yeah. That's good point to make. And just to kind of finish off on that, like I do some advisory work with organizations that are using a lot of new technologies, AI, drone technologies, and so on. And the interesting thing is that a lot of the people that I'm working with in these organizations, the conversations we're having are a lot around how can we be more human? How can we really begin to highlight our unique human contribution in this world? And so for me, it's interesting because you've got these people who are so driven by creating new technologies and so believe in AI and cutting edge tech, yet they haven't forgotten the importance of the human being. And so I would say, like, to people who are afraid that, you know, the robots are going to run away with everything and we're going to be run by you know, AI, it's just not true. Like, a lot of the leading people and the conversations I'm having with some of these leaders in these technology is, oh no, this is even more important for harnessing the unique contribution of human beings and what we can bring within this. And that kind of links back to what you're saying. So I feel very encouraged by that actually we're understanding our unique contribution more and more, and we need to continue to understand it and find it and bring it. As technology develops and runs away with stuff, we still are humans, and humans are still, you know, the most important beings on this earth. So there you go.
That's a good one, because you hear a lot of people who talk about the danger of some technology.
Yeah.
Now it's the opportunity of the technology. The
Mm.
danger hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And that is, the danger has been through the whole of human history, that one person is earlier in adopting it and uses it to control others. And that's the same with all these new technologies. The threat is not the technology. The threat is still someone is faster than someone else and abuses it to build their own power play. But the answer is, who are you? And do you have the freedom in your thinking, in your doing, in your, and maybe more important, in your being, so that you know what you say yes to and no to, and stay on track to unfold who you are and live your purpose to its boundaries? Because that's the greatest gift you can give to those around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for the time. Like, it was worth to wait the years.
Good. I hope so.
Let's do
Thank
it
you for having me. I really appreciate the invite. Really
good.
A real privilege to be able to be on your podcast, and hopefully people have enjoyed it.
Well, I'm not going to wait another 2 years for next time. So, but for those who have been listening to the end, you know, there must be something that resonated with you. And I always end the podcast. Don't ignore the valuable trigger when something resonates with you, because in authentic leadership and transformation from the inside out, your personal development, you know, well-being, it is about using the triggers to explore the opportunity. So, you know, those who will watch to the video stream, you know, they see the invitation coming by the whole time. But those who listen to the podcast, just connect and explore your first step. You can connect with us through just direct messaging, or just connect or use the link businessrevivalist.com/connect and set up a short call. And it's all about you getting started, and for us meeting you. So just use that opportunity. And Pete, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Let's plan another conversation. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Cheers.